Welcome back to another episode. Fan Nation All Utes. I'm here with Cole Bagley. My name's Lyric Clark. Cole, how are you?
Top of the world, man. What a game we watched last night.
Bright and early Sunday morning. A little earlier over here in Hawaii than it is for you in Utah. So
I can't feel bad for you though. You're in Hawaii.
it comes with the territory. Okay, I'm still feeling the rush from last night a little bit. How are you doing?
It's like surreal. Like it doesn't even feel like I don't know. It's still I don't know if it's like fully set in that it like happened. I mean, like I still kind of have that rush, and I mean the things that took place last night are just crazy. And to have been there and been on the field the last 5 minutes was like that's something I'll never forget. I don't
Yeah,
know that it's like fully set in though completely what took place, but man, what an experience, what a game, and just the environment at Rice Eccles. I mean, that's one of the best victories I think Utah's ever pulled off there.
for sure. Yeah, Coach Witt said that on the field after. He's like, history of Rice Eccles, this is it. Um, I feel like you keep having these moments where it's like that's the coolest sporting event I've ever been to. Like over like
I'm
the
just a,
last
I'm just
like
a
two
good luck
years.
charm.
All right, take it
I'm just a good
easy.
luck. I'm just no no. I'm gonna claim that. No, I mean I've been covering the Utes. This is my third season, and this program just keeps building. It feels like like they just keep having better and better victories. I mean, last year, obviously, they finally win the pack. They go to the Rose Bowl.
Mm,
And then this season it's been an interesting kind of start. It's been a little rocky. But I believe that's the first time Utah has beaten USC in back-to-back seasons in almost 100 years.
mm,
I think it's like 1915, 1916 seasons is when Utah beat them back to back. I mean, that's just not something that happens. It's USC has had Utah's number for a long time, but in recent history, it's usually gone back and forth.
yeah.
Um, but I mean, yeah, like just everything that went into that game. I was looking at the stats. It was so even. You couldn't have asked for a more even an exciting football game. The yards and the red zone trips. I think USC was 6 for 6, Utah's 6 for 7. Third down was very close. Yards, they were both in the, I think middle 500,
Mm,
500s. Like it was so incredibly even though it didn't feel that way towards the beginning. Very
right.
even football game that turned into a shootout, but
Yeah.
Utah came out on top.
I feel like the only differences were the one turnover, the fumble that Mackay had in the red zone. I mean, if you're going to have a turnover, it's good to have it all the way down there so that,
Right.
USC has to go the length of the field, but it hurts because you're about to score. Couple more calls went our way than USC in critical situations, I would say, other than the last drive that USC had where the clock was an issue there.
Right.
And then fourth downs, Utah went 3 for 3, and I think USC went over 2. And
I don't know
that's a big
that
difference maker.
I don't know that USC. Let me see. I got the whole stats right here. Did USC? Yeah, they went over 2.
Yeah.
That's crazy. I didn't even realize. I think I remember they went for it on fourth down sometime in the second half, and it just was like, okay, you're picking up like 12 yards per play. Like you're gonna go for it here, and
Yeah.
Utah got in the backfield. And I think the other one was it that Karene sack. Was that one on fourth down?
It might have been Crenny had the sack after Clark did, and then there was the
Mhm.
one fourth down where the crowd was so loud, like the camera was
Yeah,
shaking on TV,
yeah.
and the center snapped the ball early when uh the quarterback was trying to change the play.
Oh,
And
right,
that was a
right.
huge difference maker. Like I felt like they were going to get that, and because the center snapped it early, it just threw everything off.
Yeah, I remember
So
that play.
why don't we just go through the game, just talk about some key plays and kind of how the game flowed. The
Mhm.
first three possessions, Utah felt overmatched. It felt like this was a track meet for USC, and I think we had a hard time like keeping up right out of the gates.
Yeah, I mean, you go down 14-0, and usually if you go down 14-0 in the first quarter, it's almost a death sentence. It's almost like,
Mm,
all right, like that's game, like it feels decided, and not just because it was 14-0, but the how quickly USC moved the football. I mean, their first scoring drive was a minute and 44 seconds.
Right.
Second scoring drive was a little bit longer, 4:04, but I think that was USC's longest scoring drive of the day, was 4
Mhm.
minutes and 4 seconds, and when you look at it, that's really not overly long. Like, I feel like a long scoring drive is, like, 6 to 8 minutes. 4 is, like, average, maybe, like, pretty middle-ish, but USC, yeah, I mean, it was just overmatched. Utah wasn't getting into the backfield. Caleb was having, like, 8 to 10 seconds at times to throw the football. Um,
Yeah.
they were not they
The
weren't
first couple times when he dropped back and was just like, "I'm just gonna chill back here and wait." Everyone runs all the way down the
mhm.
field, and then it's just wide open for him to run, like, that was hard to watch.
Yeah, he picked up, like, 55, I think, on that play. And so, no, it was USC came out hot, and you're not surprised because, I mean, their offense is a juggernaut.
Yeah.
Their defense, if they had even a good, pretty good, I just think their defense is their Achilles heel. And they people were complaining about Utah's defense last night.
Mhm.
Not like USC's was any better.
Yeah, there wasn't a whole lot of defense going on in the game as a whole. One thing that I thought, though, that made a difference throughout the course of the game on how fast USC was scoring, I feel like their offense didn't give their defense a chance to rest and recover on the sidelines. Like, when you score in only 3 to 5 plays, that's a quick turnaround for your defense to go back out on the field, and I
Yeah,
think that made a difference over the course of the game where towards the end of the game, Utah's offense was just rolling on
yeah,
SC's defense, and I think it's due to, USC's quick scoring drives, like, they stopped running the ball for some reason when they had that lead, when they should have
mhm,
kept running it and, took time of possession and given their defense a time to, rest and catch their breath, and they didn't do that, and I think that was a difference maker for Utah. Let's
yeah,
talk about Cam's, the first roughing the passer flag,
mhm.
and then Mackay had the TD after that. Last week against UCLA, Karene had the late hit on DTR, which was, no
It
one
it was there.
yeah, but nobody had a big reaction to that flag.
Of course not, because it happened to UCLA, and then this one is against USC, and of course USC is gonna be upset about it. And I posed this question on Twitter after it happened. I literally said, "Why are we upset about this? Why are we questioning this?"
Yeah,
And
the first
anybody that
one.
had an issue with it, yeah, anybody that had a problem with it, you check their bio, USC fans, or they're from LA or something like that. And it's just like,
Yeah,
guys, he committed a roughing the passer penalty. Like it in you look at the rule book, he violated it. And so of course they throw the flag.
yeah, and the announcer, Brock, whatever his name was, apparently he played quarterback back in the day for, like, Washington or Washington State or something, so he has no allegiance to USC, but he was so adamant about it not being a roughing the passer. The difference was that makes it a flag is that he not that he took the extra step and hit him, but that the ball was released and he intentionally took an extra step and leaned into the hit. You're supposed to
Right.
pull back, and he leaned
Right.
forward. The second one seemed like a pretty good football play to me, but the first
Yeah.
one, no doubt, was a roughing the passer.
Yeah, I can admit that second was very questionable and probably would even lean towards it being a bad call. But the first one to me is you don't know football if you're claiming that that's not a penalty. Like you
Mhm.
just simple as that.
Yeah. So a bit later, we almost had Caleb Williams in there for a safety that he escaped from. This was really frustrating. I mean, he's kinda like Kyler Murray back there, how he's just so shifty and wiggly and hard to get down. It's hard to get a clean hit on the guy. Eventually, we got a few of them. I think Gabe got him on a pretty clean sack off the edge. He rolled right, and Gabe knew that he was rolling right, so he pulled off. And
Mhm.
then, Bailey had the nice Devon Bailey had the nice punt return where he cut back to the right across field. Money Parks
That's
had the
where I
long ball, and then Cam kept it on the next play for the TD.
that's where I feel like the momentum really shifted.
Yeah.
Your defense finally gets a stop, forces USC to punt. Bailey gets around the edge, picks up about 30 yards. I think they actually fixed it, changed it, and it was like 23. But still, a pretty solid return.
Yeah.
And yeah, Utah goes down and scores and makes it. I think that made it a one possession game.
Mhm.
Um, and they took care of business before halftime, and it's close ball game. Like again, things that just almost put the nail in the coffin. Trailing two scores is so much different at halftime than just trailing, by one score. Especially the way that Utah played in that first quarter to get to halftime and only be down by 7 points was just like completely different feel and situation.
Yeah, and some weird clock stuff happened before the half too, where they kept stopping for like targeting things like that. Um, they were forced to take a timeout to avoid a 10-second runoff, and then because the refs had to stop the clock, but the Utah didn't want them to stop the clock. It was a bunch of weird back and forth stuff that ended up happening at the end of the game as well. We'll get into that. It was a little bit of cat and mouse with the timeouts before halftime, but um, I feel like USC's offense is really impressive, to say
Yeah.
the least. Like their pre-snap motioning,
Mhm.
offenses just have more success when they have pre-snap motioning because it's harder for the defense to react when guys are already moving. I feel like
Right.
we could probably do a little bit more of that on offense, especially with,
Mhm.
a guy like Money Parks, who for some reason I just like watching him. I feel like he's just got a lot of talent in there that's untapped right now.
Mhm.
Um, and he, had that big catch before half. How did you feel going into halftime?
It felt achievable. It felt doable.
Yeah.
Sitting, it's funny, we're sitting up in the press box, and I can't remember exactly when it was. I feel like it was when USC, because didn't you, let's see if I check the score. So when USC went up 21-7, early in the second quarter, we're kind of sitting there, and some of the local media, just kind of turn to each other and they say, "Okay, are we writing our recap already? Are we writing it after USC goes up 21-7? Is this over?" And it felt that way, to a certain extent. You There was not a lot of hope, in Twitter. I think is if you looked at Twitter in the first quarter compared to the fourth quarter, I mean, it was uh, just so much negativity. It was, oh
Yeah.
man, this defense is terrible. This team has fallen from the throne. How what's wrong. Fire Morgan Scalley, all this stuff. Like, but then halftime, that momentum swing just fueled Utah's victory. I mean, it just kind of, not that it was like, oh man, we completely turned this game on its head, but it definitely, you could start to feel that shift.
It was like a hey,
And
we're in it. This is gonna be a game.
right, absolutely. And I even asked the question at halftime. I said, hey, Twitter, how we feeling?
Yeah.
What's going on? And a lot of people felt like we can go win this game. Utah can go and win this. This is doable. Instead of first quarter, if I would have asked that, it would have been like fire everybody, trade the team, you know, cut the program. Like, it was bad. But
Yeah.
halftime was a different feel.
That's such a weird media thing that you have to start writing your headlines like during the game. Just
Yeah.
crazy. So third quarter, we come out with the ball, which was huge. Kincaid
Hmm.
has that sideline catch, the toe tap that gets
Unbelievable.
reviewed. That guy,
Unbelievable.
I mean, first round pick. What are we thinking here? Like he had set a school record for tight ends over 200 yards, 16 catches confirmed.
Hmm.
We talked last night, and you're like, yeah, he had 15 catches. I was like, he had 15 catches, and then he came back in the game and caught another one. So I'm pretty sure he had
Yeah.
16. But
Yeah.
then Vele has they run the Philly special. Devon
Hmm.
throws it to Cam, which looked like it was way overthrown when he released it,
Yes, it did.
but Cam just kept running and got under it. Like I think
Yeah.
so in that Super Bowl where the Pats and Eagles played, the Eagles
Mhm.
ran the Philly special. The Patriots also ran one, and whatever receiver threw it to Tom Brady threw it like over his head, and Brady just stopped running. It's like I ain't getting that, man. But Cam got
Yeah.
under this one. I was pretty impressed. And then we do the play action to Kincaid for the touchdown to tie it up. Short kick. Then USC gets a quick TD. Dudes are just wide
Yeah.
open. What what's the sense on our kicking game right now? Because it was really hurting us at some points during that game, and
It's so bad.
it almost killed us at the end, if not for that flag.
I mean, I the field goal game is not terrible. I think Utah has only missed 2 field goals and you're 7 games in. That's not
Yeah,
terrible.
not a lot of
But for
attempts,
whatever
not a
reason,
ton of
what
attempts. We
right.
could have used that
But
first
for
one.
yeah, but for whatever reason, the kickoff this year has just been horrendous. And I'm pretty
Hmm.
sure that they switched kickers last night. from what they've been um, using through the majority of the season.
For kickoff or
And
field goals or both?
I think both.
Hmm,
Um,
couldn't tell you.
I'm pretty I'm pretty sure it's both. Um, anyways, I don't understand. I saw a funny tweet last night. Someone's like, we literally should just do onside kicks because that's how far the ball's going anyways, and maybe we'll come up with it. And
Yeah,
it's like, that's not even a stretch.
right.
Like, we're the kicker's barely getting it into the end zone. And
Yeah.
sometimes it's going to like the 10-yard line. And you're just setting, they bring it back 20, 30 yards. They're almost, on Utah's side of the field. So
Was that Utah last week? Did we have one against UCLA where it was like a attempted kickoff, but it was such a pooch that we just like recovered it?
I don't think
I
so.
can't remember if that was Utah or a different game I saw, but it was like an attempted kickoff and they just picked it up. Anyways, it really affected the game. And at the end was almost the nail in the coffin for us because that was nearly a kick return. Um, so we get the ball back. Mackay, we talked about Mackay's fumble. It was the first and only turnover of the game. And I kept waiting for Utah's defense to make that kind of play because I felt like we really needed it.
Uh-huh.
Force a big turnover, flip the field, get the ball back, something, interception. And when that one happened, I was like, dang it, man. That was the one that Utah's defense I felt needed. Um, but we responded pretty decently, all things considered. Jordan Addison, USC's receiver number 3, he goes out with injury. He doesn't return. That guy was killing us, like
He came out
downfield
on
all the time.
crutches. He came out on crutches and no pads. So I'm wondering if something pretty bad. His knee buckled a really bad way,
Yeah,
and it almost looks like an ACL, MCL injury.
meniscus perhaps. Yeah,
Yeah, like when a receiver comes back out on crutches and no pads,
right.
and especially after you watch the replay on that injury, that could be really bad for that guy.
Yeah, he was trying to make a good play for the first down, took an extra step, lunged, and one leg was pulled back and he extended the other one forward and stomped on his knee, and then it just
Yeah,
bad luck.
one of the Utah defender hit him on the way out. I mean, it was a legal play,
Hmm.
and yeah, I mean, I think like it's just one of those things where you're trying to pick up extra yards, and instead of maybe bowing out a couple of yards before, you try to pick up more, and you get hit the wrong way, and because of your momentum and speed and the other guys, like it happens, and it's unfortunate. I mean, it's the same thing that happened to Brant Keithy a couple weeks ago.
Yeah,
Um,
and it almost happened to Kincaid today, or
yes, it
in the
did.
game as well. But anyways, so then after that, Clark Phillips has the first like clean sack. It just comes off the edge and nails him. That
Did you
was
see that?
awesome.
Did you see that the whole way?
Yeah,
Like I mean, I was fixated on Clark because all of a sudden he comes up to the line right at the snap,
yeah, he
and it's
timed it
like,
well.
okay, oh yeah, I mean, he didn't give it away until literally he jumps up to the line and the ball snapped, and then
Yeah,
boom, he just there's no protection, and he just
yeah.
dropped it. And that's not something you see
Well, he made an
often.
inside move. He
Yeah,
made an inside move on whoever was supposed to be blocking him, and that's rare for a corner. And, normally they're trying to fly outside and up around. He made an
right.
inside move and came in clean.
Yep.
And then the next play, Korene gets the sack. Korene's sack was on third down. And so
Yes.
then that forced the fourth and 26 where they had no hope of trying to go for it.
Hmm.
Well, maybe they could have. I mean, they were getting big chunks every other
But
play,
it's
it felt like, but
but it's crazy. So like I've got every single drive in front of me.
hmm,
So from the first quarter all the way through the fourth. So this is USC. Touchdown, touchdown, touchdown. Turn it over on downs. Punt, touchdown, downs, touchdown, punt, touchdown, game over. Utah, field goal, touchdown, punt, punt, touchdown, 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 fumble, touchdown, touchdown.
that's
Like,
wild.
it's crazy. Like, how that flipped because it
Yeah,
was all USC and then it was all Utah. I mean, the time of possession in the fourth quarter, I mean, Utah had um, a lot of time late in that game. I
right.
mean, their last three possessions, 5 minutes, 57 seconds, 4 minutes, 10 seconds, 5:27.
Yeah.
Like they played that as well as you could have.
Yeah, and we'll get to that last drive. That was winning time. That was an awesome
Mhm.
drive. We'll get to it. Start of the fourth quarter, we had the second late hit on Cam, really exposed hit, targeting reviewed clean. Like I said earlier, good football hit in my opinion. Like football's gonna football sometimes, and I think that was a good hit.
Yeah, I
That
mean, that's football is gonna football. You just have to play through it. And I think USC got away with a lot of holding penalties offensively. And like if you look at that, you I went back and looked at that should have been safety.
mhm,
One of I can't tell who it was. I mean, I didn't look at it long enough to see the number on the Utah player, but whoever was the D end, which if it's that right side, I almost feel like it was Van Fillinger. He has the defender beat, and the defender grabs him from behind and holds him. That should have been a safety,
mhm.
100%.
Yeah,
And that
holding
was
in the end zone's a
happening.
safety.
That was happening all night long. So
Yeah.
football's gonna football. USC cannot act like, oh, the refs handed you this one. Yes, you can. I will tell you that second roughing the passer, bad call. But there was plenty of poor calls going on all night long on
And
USC's side
and
as well.
clock management as well. Like
Oh
both
yeah,
both teams I think have a right to be upset. And then when both teams have the right to be upset, it's a push. You just play
Mhm.
football. It's whoever responds and reacts better. And
Right.
that last drive, Utah went down and won it, and USC still had a chance.
Right.
Um, the next play that hit on Bernard that they called targeting, there was like 3 or 4 targeting calls that they reviewed and said, actually, it's not targeting, it's just football. That was ruled clean. I think that was an okay hit as well. Like helmets are allowed to touch each other. You just
Yeah.
can't go intentionally straight for the other dude's helmet. So
Yeah. I
that
think
was that.
the angle, because from the press box, I mean, we're up there, but the way that we were facing, everybody was like, "Oh yeah, that's a targeting call." And then we
Mhm.
get the video replay, and it's like, "Okay, it's not." So I just think, I mean, in game, the way it happened, Makai's freaking head, man, just goes straight back,
Right.
and you hear something. So as a ref, like you're gonna throw a flag there because
Yeah.
you can go and review it and take it back, but you don't want to miss it and have missed something that was a really dangerous play. Like it gave every indication to be targeting until they looked at it and said, okay, it's actually not.
Yeah. And I get the refs wanting to be careful. It just felt like there was a lot of plays where they were like, I'm not sure, let's go look at it. And it
One
it
of the
it
worst
made the
officiating.
it made the
Yeah,
game last so long. Like that was nearly like a 4-hour game, it felt like.
it was. No, it was. It was almost exactly 2 hours through the first half. And then the end of the third quarter, we were a little over 3 hours in. And I think it was like just under 4 hours.
Yeah.
Like it was a long game.
Hmm.
I loved it. Some of the press were like, "Let's just get this over with," but I was like, "I know the officiating's crap, but I am loving how intense and just how long. Like this is great football. Let's just keep
Yeah.
going." You know?
Yeah. Good football, bad officiating, but it is what it is. So Cam has the QB sneak for 1 yard, gets the touchdown. And then we had a good covered kick. And the reason it was a good covered kick is because the returner hesitated for a second whether he was going to take it out of the end zone or not. Because he was like
Yeah,
right on the borderline. And then he ended up taking it out. And we got him down at like the 10 or 15. So that was awesome.
yeah,
USC gets a quick touchdown on the next drive. The Utes showed blitz. I thought this was a really key play and an awesome play for USC, not going to lie. Utes showed blitz on a hard count.
mhm.
So Williams, acts like he's going to snap it. Everyone like jumps forward like they're about to blitz. USC audibles, they get calls from the sideline, whatever. Audibles to the wide receiver screen. The O line cuts down all the blockers, gets it to the wide receiver, 20-yard touchdown, easy. Like that. That was just beautiful offense. And then the next drive is when Kincaid had the knee injury scare. Did you guys all feel like he was out, or what was the deal there?
Yeah. So that's when Utah ties it up. Yeah, that's the score you're talking about?
This was the score where,
Like this is
um,
Utah's last possession.
yeah, yep.
Okay. Yeah. So I'm on the field at this point,
Mm,
and he drops about, I don't know, 20 yards downfield, and I can
mm,
see him perfectly. And yeah, I mean, he goes down, and it's just like he didn't seem to be like, oh crap. I mean, obviously he came back in and played. It
yeah.
didn't seem like it just. I mean, I I don't know really the details of it. I wasn't overly worried. Like you see a player go down, and it's like, oh crap, what happened? But the
Hmm.
way that he kind of was sitting, I almost think that maybe he just slightly tweaked something or had a stinger and just and
Yeah.
this guy goes for 200 yards. Like he's gassed. Like I think he may have just needed a minute to just
Yeah.
hey,
He definitely had
I'm
something. It might have
yeah,
just been a little sprainer, like a scare, probably is a good way to say it,
right.
because he does have like a little knee sleeve on that side,
Mm,
and it looked like that was the side where he was favoring.
yeah.
So whatever it was, that dude's an actual absolute monster. And when he was hyping up the crowd walking off the field, like,
That's
dude, that was
that
awesome.
I got chills on the sideline. I'm not
Yeah,
gonna lie. Like
yeah,
Rice Eccles like erupted and like giving him a standing O. Like
yeah,
so many people in the crowd stood up, and it that I mean that was one of the coolest moments I've ever seen. I mean they just were like, bow down, man. Like this
yeah.
guy is giving it everything he's got, and
And then
he
he's
totally deserved it.
back out there
Yeah,
like a play later, getting a key first down.
yeah,
And then so there's 1 minute left. Mackay runs it up. They got on third down, third and goal. That looked like it was going to be a touchdown. And that
slapped.
linebacker, number 44, just comes in and smacks him right in the A gap.
I mean his foot is literally like on the goal line. Like
Yeah.
I mean, got to be inches. And
Hmm.
from my angle, I didn't see the linebacker yet, so I'm thinking, okay, Makai's going to score, and then all of a sudden, this linebacker almost just like shape shifts into this
Yeah.
position and just bam, and you hear it, and you see. I mean, Makai just crumpled like a piece of paper.
He reacted like pretty well considering how good that hit was. Like he kind of spun off it and it took another guy to bring him down. But like on that play, for some reason, I didn't have much nerve that we weren't going to score on fourth down and even the 2 point conversion. So Cam keeps it on fourth, design run, easy. He has, I don't know if it was Mackay or Tavion behind him that could have pushed him in if it was close, but I think it
Mm.
was Kincaid that motioned in front, like kind of a lead blocker situation. That was just a powerhouse play. And the whole drive, I was like, if we're scoring, we're going for two here. We're not messing around
Oh
with
yeah,
overtime or anything like that. Did you feel like we were going for two the whole time?
yeah. I mean, I posed that question on Twitter as Utah took over. I said,
Hmm.
if Utah scores here, do you go for two? And my feeling was yes, because
Yeah.
you do not want to go to overtime with that USC team because they're going to score. They are going to score on every single drive.
Attempt, yeah.
Every single time, and stopping them on 2 point conversions if it got to that point was just going to be downright near impossible, just because of
Yeah.
like we talked about their motioning and how well that their receivers run their routes and cross the field and not that Utah's secondary was necessarily outmatched, but I just yeah, if that game went to overtime,
You don't want to play that game with that offense.
no, and Whittingham understood that, and Cam even said it in a post game press conference. He said it was we knew going into that drive if we score, we're going for two.
Yeah, I think the play is like if you get it down under a minute to go in the game, just go for the win. And normally it's not very typical that a home team is in that situation where they feel like they need to go for two. Because they
Right.
have a little bit of an advantage being at home, obviously, especially Utah. Their record
Yep.
at home versus on the road is pretty drastic. They
Yep.
don't lose at home very often, if ever. When Cam kept it the second play, the 2 point conversion, I was stoked because I when they ran the first play, I was like, just run that play again. Like, just do it again. They're not stopping us. And then he ends up keeping it. When he dropped back to pass, I was like, don't pass, just take off and run, just tuck it.
Yep. I think it was a play option. At least it appeared to be that way.
Yeah, running was for sure in his head the whole time.
Yeah, and then
If
he
his first
just
read wasn't there, which was
yeah.
probably Kincaid being double teamed.
Well, and I think it was.
Yeah.
Yeah, and Solo Medina's had a pretty good block on that play. I mean, Solo didn't. I think Solo had one catch, but he had a
Mm,
good block that really. And then he was smart. Instead of getting an illegal block, he just puts his hands up in the air and just
right.
is like, my body's here. You can't. I can obstruct you just standing here.
Yeah.
And Cam kind of ducks and gets in, and as soon as when he gets in the end zone, I don't know if you saw, but he goes like this, and I almost feel like it was double meaning. It was almost like 22, right, and then fight on,
And then
which
also I
I
just got the 2 point conversion.
yeah, so triple meaning.
Yeah. So then the kickoff, I thought we lost it there. We got saved
I
by the
did
by the
too. I
flag.
was behind. I was behind. I was literally right behind the in the end zone, so behind them,
Yeah.
and they break free, and I'm like, I'm like, Utah would do this. I'm like, they would go ahead and then give up a freaking kick return to lose. I mean, they got him anyways, but then the flag, of course.
Yeah, the flag saved us. Clark Phillips PI, pretty intentional, probably a good, good flag to take there instead of getting beat. But it's so the interception return takes like at least like 6 or 7 additional seconds off. And then for some reason they put time back on the clock. It was a weird mishap. I don't know if Coach Witt's explanation was like, I don't know if they call a timeout during the play or if the official stopped the clock unintentionally, but the clock stopped, kept running. They ended up putting time back on. Then they get
Mm-hmm.
a false start due to the crowd noise, which was huge. And then the last play, Caleb Williams just took too long on the scramble, took up all their time, threw the ball with no one really open, and that's game. That was it.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, wrapping that that last USC drive, the difference maker was that the defensive line was finally getting into the backfield. They made him move multiple times. They made him think there was one that he just chucked it down the sideline. It goes out of bounds, and then that one, of course, he has to scramble to the side. He's throwing off his back foot. It's a little
Desperation.
bit wobbly. Yeah, it's desperation. It's wobbly. It's high. It gives Utah time. There were 3 defenders actually in that vicinity. So Cole
Hmm.
Bishop had the receiver covered. JT Broughton dropped in front of the receiver, and then RJ Hubert comes flying off of his assignment. And I think RJ actually tipped the ball away.
Hmm.
And yeah, I mean, it's just one of those thrilling games that you love to be there and you love to have said, even if you just watched it. But the reaction of Utah, so I didn't realize that the clock had run out. I thought they were going to get another play,
Yeah,
and I
it was
actually I
close.
was videoing it. I was videoing it, and then all these people rushed the field, and you can hear me in the video. I go, "Oh, that's game." And it was just like
Oh,
it
we're
was
done.
yeah, it was crazy, and it was just fun to like go out there, and of course we've got we have relationships with with the players, and I
Yeah,
see Correa on the field, and he just like points at me, comes running up, and gives me like the biggest like celebration hug, and
yeah,
it's just fun. Like those are just memories that you never forget. Like that to
yeah.
me, that's a game that years from now, you can say like, man, you guys remember, when Utah beat USC, in the last second, and we rushed the field, and we stayed. I mean, it's gonna be interesting to see what happens the rest of the way. I mean,
Hmm.
Utah, they kept, their backs are against the wall, and they kept themselves alive. They very much are still in the conversation um, for a Pac-12 championship, especially if Oregon beats UCLA next week,
Yep.
and then if Utah goes to Eugene and gets a victory, and obviously they win out their other games, but the remaining schedule, it's Washington State, Arizona, Colorado, and Stanford. Like pretty much 3 of those 4 gimmies. Washington State, that's going to be tough because it's in Pullman, but Utah's alive and they did it. And what I also love is that that's probably USC's last time in Rice Eccles for a long time.
Did you see Cam's post game when he said that?
Mm-mm.
Oh, he's like, I don't know. Someone asked him what it meant to beat USC. He's like, well, they're probably going to the Big Ten next year, so felt pretty good to beat him. Probably not going to play him again anytime soon. And then it was like him, Kincaid, Karenin, and Devon. They all just started laughing when he said that, and I was like, oh, this actually. They talked about this. This meant something to them.
Oh, 100%. I
Yeah,
mean, and I also just kind of feel like there was almost like an emotional shift. So between the third and fourth quarter, they do the moment of loudness.
yeah. I was going to ask you
Um,
about that.
yeah, so they do the moment of loudness during in between the third and fourth quarter, and they've done this for the last past 2 seasons. Following the tragic passings of Ty Jordan and Aaron Lowe, and so I've been there every single home game that they've done that. I've been there, and they all you get chills every time. This one just almost felt different. Like the I
What
mean,
was the helmets? Their
mo-
mothers were there getting game balls.
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, and that was the most people that Rice Eccles has ever had. That was
yeah.
they set a record, and there was not an open seat. The standing room above was jam packed. I my sister was actually in the student section, and she said that it was like sardines.
Hmm.
I just it felt different, and it like at halftime it felt achievable,
Yeah,
and going into the fourth it felt like Utah's game,
yeah.
and it turned out to be. I mean, you look at the quarters, and I mean, Utah just they dominated. They scored 15 points. It's just
Mhm.
like is pretty incredible.
Yeah, pretty sweet. Gutsy call going for 2, but felt like the right call for sure. And then just play defense. We got the win. And like you said, the rest of the way, we'll see. We just got to try to do our best to win out. And, we might play these dudes again. The Pac-12 championship might be UCLA. We'll see.
Yeah, it's a good time for the bye week to come. It
Yep.
just emotions are high, so let's
Yeah.
calm down,
Get a rest.
gather themselves, get some rest,
And
and
then the following week we play Thursday, right?
yeah,
And then
yeah.
after,
So
so it's kind of like almost back to back long breaks, which is really good.
yeah, yeah, and but yeah, I like I like that this break is now, and then it's not quite like, oh, it's not, I like that it's not 2 weeks that they have
Hmm.
to wait, to play. It's like 10, 11 days.
Yeah.
That's not as bad, and then same kind of deal. So you get a nice amount of time to just really collect yourself, spend some time with their families, and we'll try to check in with some of these guys this week and see if we can't get their perspective on what was just an awesome game.
Yeah, it'll be fun to get someone on. Appreciate you all listening. Like and subscribe the video, share it with your friends, and we'll get a player on later this week, probably.
Yep,
Okay, thank you, Cole. Appreciate it.
fight on.
Nice.